Well, welcome back to Wealth Mavericks podcast, the only show where we talk about the secrets the wealthy know to build generational wealth. And I'm excited about our episode today. Bob, this is an area, like most of the areas that we talk about, where you have a deep sense and knowledge around this. So we're talking to physicians today, doctors, surgeons. I don't know what other, I know a lot of subsets.
There's a lot.
We're talking to you, Doc.
But we also got to acknowledge and embrace the fact that I'm running a business. And physicians don't go to school, they don't go to residency, they don't learn their specialty to run a business. They go to help patients. And so now they're responsible. So my CPA does my taxes.
Right.
My CPA needs to refer me to the financial advisor. The financial advisor refers me to the estate attorney.
Right.
And who's left to kind of manage all this? The doctor.
So I'm excited because one, we have a lot of clients who are physicians. Yeah. And Bob, I remember the first time you told me about the work you've done with physicians, and I didn't believe you at first. And I begin to understand this now. You said, I could listen to a voice message from a doctor and I could tell their specialty.
Yeah.
Are they a surgeon? Are they a pulmonologist? Are they, you had that down. So maybe if we can just start out, tell us a little bit about your history with working with physicians, and then let's dive into some of the specific things that doctors experience in their career when it comes to wealth building.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to join a group in LA, and they dealt with medical malpractice, but they were structured in a certain way based on California statute and law, that they also had their own law firm. So they had 28 trial attorneys as part of it. They set themselves up as a membership group. That sounds familiar, right? And there's certain structure that made them different than other types of medical malpractice insurance coverage. Won't go into any more detail because it's not pertinent to this conversation, but they also had an insurance agency. Their dialogue and their focus and their goal was to improve value to members. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just about medical malpractice. The reason why they had 28 trial attorneys was to keep claims lower so they can bring more value to the members and lower medical malpractice costs, right? It was always about bringing value to the table. And that was really that kind of first, it wasn't like aha moment. It was literally a punch to the nose. It's like, this is so important. Everything we talk about is about value to our member. And to me, that was like, wow, okay, cool. And so they had an insurance agency, or they still do have an insurance agency. And that's when I was able to be brought on based on my experience in financial planning and life insurance. They were doing workshops and dinners and various strategies for doctors, more complicated planning strategies. I got an opportunity to learn about disability, which I had no clue about disability before that. I got to learn and understand about malpractice. I got to understand and learn more about physicians. And so because I did financial planning before, I entered this relationship with, I'm going to go meet the doc. And I had to learn how to meet with physicians because, as you know, when you go to see your doctor as a patient, they're never on time, right? I'm a vendor, right? It didn't matter that I was part of the organization that they were a member of. I was still a vendor, right? And so if they're late for a patient, they're definitely going to be late for a vendor, right? And so I started understanding how to set appointments, when to set appointments. So like all my surgeons, I would meet at 6 a.m. If their day was late that day, that was because of me, because they were asking me a bunch of questions. So I guess the point is that it was the beginning of my education of understanding pretty much the majority of strategies that are out there, because most of the banks and investment companies and insurance companies, we call them the financial distributors. You can call them financial manufacturers. These are the financial products you and I use for our life. And what they ended up doing was every advisor that represented them always went to doctors and they wanted to pitch these strategies, right? Everybody wanted to work with doctors. And so because I was part of this membership organization, I had an in because all I had to say is, "Hi, this is Bob Wolf with such and such organization. Thanks for
Right.
being a member." Right. So
Right.
I already had that trust factor. And so now that I'm there, they would just spill their guts of all these different strategies that were presented to them probably the last time anybody sat in their office or waited in the waiting room long enough for them to be sat in their office.
Right.
Had the
Well, and
patience.
you had all of this experience with them, and I know some of the learnings that you had, your 5 minute rule and stuff like that, which is actually there to protect and serve them,
Yeah.
not the other way around. And I think some of the things that I feel so one, like that was the field I thought I was going to go into. I wanted to become a doctor, like since I was a little kid. When I
Yeah.
got into pre-med in college, I decided it wasn't for me. But my heart is there for doctors, and I
Yeah.
have some friends who are physicians, and they can go through waves of time that is really difficult. And candidly speaking, post COVID, the conversation is very different for a lot of people. We were talking with an expert the other day, and she said the education in her, I don't know if it was like continuing ed, I don't know, whatever it is on the physician side of things, but she said that the hottest topic was filing for bankruptcy because all these elective surgeons, their businesses through COVID were just demolished. And so it's like this is like government regulation that happened that basically put people out of business. I know I have friends who have like I feel like they still experience post residency trauma, whereas
Yeah.
like that experience of going through residency when you're working, what are there 168 hours in a week and you're working 160 of them,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
that like builds up this residue. And so these doctors who are all about helping the community, serving the community around them in a very selfless ways and compensated well for that, but they get duped a lot.
Yeah.
So what is it do you think about, because you saw all of the other people in the financial services industry who wanted to work with doctors and they'd bring them all these wackadoo solutions, but what is it about the psychology of a doctor do you feel like causes them to kind of get, you know, pulled in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I think to your point, building this appreciation when you spend time with doctors, you do start to appreciate their environment. And let's look at residency, right? Medical school is all about understanding, memorizing, learning the anatomy of what their physician is. They're generalist, right? No different than
Hmm.
if you go to law school, you're learning all the laws, and then
Hmm.
you slowly go into specialties. And but to your point, residency, I think there's a model of a physicianing. And when you become a physician and you're physicianing, it's really weird because depending on economic environments and laws that change affects them differently. So like when Obamacare was passed, that affected them. When they
Mm.
approved HMOs, doctors approved part of this HMO because they thought it was going to benefit them, and now they loathe HMO, and it affects
Mm.
the model of doctoring. It affects the model of a practice. It affects the referring process, right? Which
Mhm.
affects you and I as patients as well. So when you look at each of these events that occur, it kind of goes back to my book, Economic Termites. Right. It
Right.
affects everybody. When there's a law or regulation change, the fourth termite in the book, it affects how we do things.
Hmm.
And we have to change and adjust moving forward. And a lot of times as a physician, you're not capable of doing that. And the reason being is you're a scientist. That's the brain you have. Now, you have some
Right.
physicians that are business owners that happen to be a physician, or they're a master marketer. They're a dermatologist and they're a master marketer using social media, but they happen to be a
Yeah, that's
dermatologist.
that's a good point. It's like their profession is not that of being a business owner. Like and you even mentioned this the other day when we were talking. What do they call their business? They don't call it a business. They call it a practice.
Practice. That's
They're
right.
don't no matter what level of mastery they've achieved, they call it a practice. And I think that's a deeply seated psychological thing where it's like I'm always improving. I'm getting
Yeah.
better every single
Yeah.
day. But on the financial side, it just see it, and I've heard so many times where physicians get taken advantage of
Yeah.
by like
Yeah.
truly like people with malicious intent. It's like I'm going into this knowing I can dupe them. So
Yeah.
what is it? Because I know in service-based businesses, and that's a lot of what my career has been in the coaching industry. I've been coaching for almost 20 years. And the equation is this: more money equals more time. Like if I want to make more money, I need to serve more clients, and make, and, or, increase my value, whatever it might be. But it's mostly like more time is the only way to get more money.
Yeah.
So physicians, it's very similar, and they end up working with sometimes thousands of patients, and they don't really know their patients that well. They feel overwhelmed by the business, let alone all the paperwork that exists around that.
Yeah.
So what is it about maybe financial advisors or financial advice that kind of seeks to take advantage in this scenario?
Well, I think when you think about physicians give up a decade of their life to become a physician.
To get started.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. So all of a sudden they're 28, 29 getting started. And depending on their specialty, it could be in their early 30s. Right. Because not only do they have their normal residency, but then they have their specialty residency. And then they have, if I'm doing, brain surgeons, probably, I think they actually are neurosurgeons, actually start their practice if they're private practice at 33. Right. In the early 30s. So you gave up 15 years of your earning potential. Right.
So do you think they feel behind? Like there's this behind feeling?
Well, think about it, because you're married by that time. You've got kids by that time. As they're going through residency, they're getting loans because they're not making the money they would in private practice. So they're getting loans to live that lifestyle of, I rent a vehicle, I'm driving my same Honda Accord or my Camry, right? My wife is, caring for our 2 to 3 kids, right? And now I'm in practice. Right. And all their physician friends are going through the same thing. But when you think about it, when you look at their other friends who aren't doctors, they've all been in a career for 10 years.
Right. Well, and then their earning goes from like not really minimum wage, but it feels like minimum wage, to all of a sudden when they get their specialty and they've got to practice, and they might get a $250,000 salary, and they might have stuff on top of that. So all of a sudden you go from that's, I think, what it is, Bob, this feeling of behind, coupled with all of a sudden now you have this disposable income.
Yes.
Where it's like
you won the lottery.
It's almost overnight. So then people see that and take advantage of it. Then you go, your psychology is like, I need to catch up. They're saying what I feel like I need to hear to catch up, and I have this money to give them.
Yeah.
And so it's like almost like no harm, no foul. It's like, well, I gave that a shot and it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, think about that conversation we had yesterday. Right. We had a conversation with one of our members, and he's like, look, I'm in my 40s and I made mistakes. I know I made mistakes. And now I feel like I need to catch up.
Yes.
And we're like, time out, slow down. You're running a business. We got to understand cash flow, and we don't want to put the cart before the horse. And so I think a lot of times that's what physicians do, is they put the cart before the horse. But to your point before, is that when they come into private practice, they're in a practice, not a business. And it's a noble thing to say, right? We're all trying to improve ourselves.
Right.
Right. That's the goal we all strive to. And we're learning. Yes, that's important. But we also got to acknowledge and embrace the fact that I'm running a business. And physicians don't go to school. They don't go to residency. They don't learn their specialty to run a business. They go to help patients. And so now they're responsible for, if they joined a practice and now they're going to be a partner in 3 years, and that's what they're striving for. And they were putting tons of time into residency, tons of time into their specialty. And then all of a sudden now they're in practice, and now they're behind the 8 ball, and they're working 18 hours a day, depending on their specialty, or 12 hours a day, right? More than the normal, but they're getting paid more, but now their time hasn't changed either.
Right.
Right. So when are they going to learn to run a business? When are they going to learn about finances? At some point in their mind, they just got to say, I have to trust somebody.
Right.
Because if I don't, I keep falling farther and farther and farther behind. And so who do they usually trust? Their most valuable advisor is their CPA. That's their most valuable advisor. And Joe, what's our experience with most CPAs, right?
Well, I think there's a new article that's got to come out soon called your CPA sucks and you know it.
And of course we're tongue in cheeking it. Not all of them are bad, right? There are really some good ones, but they're a public accountant.
Right.
And what most doctors are looking for is that all of a sudden I hit this lottery, I have this windfall, I'm making a lot of money. I've got debt, right? What do they always say? Follow the money. So if you're in residency and you're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in medical school and to be in residency, and B of A, all you have to do is say, I'm a doctor,
Right.
and they'll give you money for a mortgage.
Approved.
Done.
Right.
There is no underwriting process. You're a doctor because they
Wow.
know they're going to get paid. Why? Because of the model of physicianing.
Mm.
So this becomes very detrimental to a physician because of these various things. The other thing too is when you think about it, physicians and their models all about specialties. So they segment the relationships in their life to that as well. So my CPA does my taxes,
Right.
right? My CPA needs to refer me to the financial advisor. The financial advisor refers me to the estate attorney.
Right.
And who's left to kind of manage all this? The doctor.
Right.
Well, they don't know because the CPA doesn't know all these rules and laws and stuff. And this is what framed spending 9 years working with physicians. This is what framed the model of our business.
Mm-hmm.
Is look, the terminology we always hear is the riches in there in the niches, right? Become a sniper. These are all terms we've heard in the coaching world, right? In I realized that no, time out. The niche is being the person who understands how these snipers work. Right?
Well, it's a holistic viewpoint of
Right.
this person's life, what their goals are, what they need. And I think when a doctor can understand that, because I think they'll understand what you just said.
Mhm.
You know, for the most part, they are used to dealing in these compartmentalized capacities.
Yeah.
But you can't do that and risk the holistic health of that individual.
Right.
So I think what would you say, like, for a physician right now who's potentially worried about, hey, I feel like I'm getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And it's probably not their CPA that's doing that. Their CPA just may not know how to maximize benefits to them. But
Right.
like with investments or things like that, what are a couple questions you think a physician could ask his or her advisors or these opportunities that would help, kind of ward off those, malintent people?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just understanding that there is no silver bullet.
Hmm.
Right. And what I mean by that is that you need to work with somebody who's holistic, who has an agnostic viewpoint of the financial products that we talked about earlier with banks and investment companies and insurance companies. They're all tools. And like a physician, you have multiple tools to have a right outcome for your patient, whatever kind of specialty you're in. Right. Not you're a hammer and everything's a nail. No, that's not what you are. So you shouldn't treat your financial advice that's being given to you as such. You shouldn't have people in your world that are just running around with hammers and they're preaching to you. They're
Right.
presenting to you that you're a nail. And because down deep, you're not. But
Right.
because you feel like you're behind the eight ball, because you want to do this, because you want to do that, one of the main things is when I talk to doctors, business owners as well, other traditional business owners outside of the medical field, is why do you put money into a pension or 401k or retirement plan? And their number one answer is because of the tax savings. But it's a retirement plan.
Right.
Right. And so one of the things a right strategist does is that you shouldn't be putting your money into an asset because of the tax benefit. You should be doing it because of the benefit of the asset. And what I mean by that is that retirement plans, in my opinion, are one of the most least tax efficient over the long haul of the asset.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what they're concerned about. And that's what not CPAs are concerned about. They're concerned about the here and now. You as a physician are trying to make your patient healthy now. So you don't have delayed gratification once you get into practice before you do, because you're waiting to get into practice because you're going through residency and medical school and all the things to get to the point where you want to be at. But now everything has to be instant gratification because you feel like you're behind the eight ball.
Right.
All of this is a psychological mindset of understanding the value of what you're doing. If you're 40, you still have 20 years. Here's the problem with COVID and the conversations we've had with doctors because of COVID. They don't want to be in practice for 20 years.
Mm.
They're done. The business of physicianing has changed so dramatically because of that, that
Right.
a lot of them are stuck, and they're now making decisions that are even more instant gratification just to get the you know what out.
Right.
And so that's why a lot of them are focusing on real estate.
Sure.
And there's benefits to real estate, but again, there is no silver bullet.
Well, I think understanding that, I mean, just a physician understanding, like, understand that you are a holistic human being that has holistic needs. And, just like a battlefield trauma nurse or, surgeon is not gonna, they're not making the best decision for the human overall. They're trying to save their life in that second.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I had, weeks to game plan this and collaborate with other surgeons, I'd maybe make different decisions, but I don't have that leisure. I've got to save this human's life right now at the cost of some other things. And so I think, understand you've got the time, and you've got teams that can help you with this. So just make sure that you're bringing this into a team. Like, if something that's the other thing, is if something sounds too good to be true, it often is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you've got to understand that. So have that team around you, for that. I think it'd be interesting, Bob, your story about, what is it? The horse called Asset.
Yeah.
I'd love to go live over in our members only area, and I'd love for you to tell that story.
Sure.
I think doctors would really understand that. Again, the concept of putting the cart before the horse, you got to understand the nature of the horse,
Right.
to begin that. So
Yeah.
we'll have that over in our members only area. I know we're going to be producing a lot more content for physicians. So keep your eyes out, Doc. If you've got specific needs, feel free to drop your questions. If you're watching on YouTube, drop in the comments, like, what questions do you have specifically? Or if it feels easier to do that, send a message to our team. Our contact info is on this page for you to be able to send information to us, and we can answer your questions in an anonymous fashion. We won't call you out, but let us know what questions you have, and we can cater some of that content to you. So, and until we meet next time, we wish you the very best. And, from all of humanity, thank you for the work that you're doing. It is important work. I know how exhausting it is, but you really, really matter. And I think deep down, that. I think that's why you got into what you're doing. And I just want to encourage you, stick with it. There are plans that you will be able to live the life that you want. And find that team who can really help you. And if we're that team, we'd love to be that for you. So until next time, we hope you have an awesome, awesome day. No, don't have an awesome day. Make it a great day.
Make it a great day.